Atomic gigantification was a sweeping Japan nation when along came a dude with an ultra attitude, a Kamen rider who's the greatest kicker of Japan. And of all, man, life's too short now, baby, to not talk big now, baby.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Kaiju Conversation. I'm your host, Elijah, and joining me, as always, my lovely co-host and editor.
Hello, I am Rex.
And joining us, the most commonly found person on the podcast, if you're counting live streams and episodes, is somebody who needs no introduction, but I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hi, I'm here to introduce myself. Man, that was a good intro, Elijah. It's so exciting to actually be like I'm getting to see how it's all done behind the scenes here at Kaiju Conversation. I'm sorry, I'm such big fans, you guys. Oh my gosh, am I blushing? I feel like I'm blushing. Okay, I should probably actually introduce myself here, shouldn't I? I am Daniel DiManna, frequent name drop in pretty much every episode of the show, thanks to multiple contributions. And, I think that's pretty much all I'm famous for, right? Is I get the thanks, Danny, and I sang your theme song.
You did.
Yes.
I mean, it's not like I wrote a book or anything, right?
You wrote a book?
I did write a book. It's called Godzilla, The First 70 Years. Me and my good friend Ed Gonchachevsky wrote. Never mind. I am the author of G Cinema, an exploration and celebration of Japan's Monster King, which is a freshly released history book on some guy named Godzilla. I don't know her. A pretty cool thing about that book, Elijah, that you might be aware of is that it has a really interesting, kind of very sweet, fun foreword. Written by somebody who I believe you're rather familiar with.
Jackson, I didn't know you wrote.
Oh, damn. Unfortunately, I don't think I wrote for that book, though, strangely
Which
enough.
is weird because the foreword was written with an Australian accent.
Oh, ain't that crazy?
So if it wasn't you, then I guess we'll never know who it was. Elijah, if you ever figure it out, maybe we'll find out at the end of the show because maybe it'll get mentioned in somebody's bona fides.
It might. Yeah.
It might.
So I need to establish, if we're a little rusty, it has been a very, very, very long time since Rex and I have recorded anything. We have, oh God, we have recorded. Most of it's not released yet because it's a top secret project that has now been put on hold that is about to come back around, and we are going to be recording that again, soon to be released. Other than that, a lot of the episodes this year have actually been in the library, sitting, waiting to be released from last year. And now we're here. This will be the first episode since, I want to say,
like February?
February sounds right.
I feel like the last recording was in February, from memory.
That's crazy, guys. I need my content. I need my Kaiju Conversation content. Come on.
I'm sorry.
Come on. Make it happen.
We did release a bonus episode that was recorded around the same time with Chris Yates for his comic book, Kingslayer Protocol. But outside of that, it's been pretty quiet. And we are going to reveal some of the secrets of behind-the-scenes Kaiju Conversation work that happened in those preceding months. But before we really dive into that, we have our normal spiel. First, I'm going to just throw it out into the ether. How is everybody?
Oh, my God. What how long has it been? 3 months since the last recording?
Yes.
Oh my God, so much has happened. Oh my God. It's been a real sink or swim time. I've had the time of my life. It's been one of the best periods of my life. But oh my god, I have never been more stressed and more busy.
Can you, without getting into details, because we don't have a ton of time on this episode, next time we record, we will be diving into Yours and I's 3 months. Can you just give us a maybe top 2, one being a highlight and one being maybe not a highlight?
Oh, that's yeah. I can certainly do that. I will say they're both related to my degree. I study film, and so 2 separate productions. The highlight one is a live sports broadcast I did. I did a few actually. A few live broadcast events. One of them was like an actual like national like cycling event, which was pretty cool, and had like an Olympic, like a person from the Olympics, as one of the commentators. That was really cool. The other like sport broadcast was really cool. I did camera operation for those, and helped with a lot of like the setup and pack downs as well. Just an overall really fun experience. Meanwhile, there's one particular class that has been a thorn in my side, to the point where like we had a production that was it was a virtual studio production, which is pretty cool. I've never done something like that before. Very, very expensive stuff if you aren't doing it through university. And yeah, that whole production, and to just summarize, that whole production almost got shut down like the day before shooting, so we almost failed that assignment, that whole unit, because of certain people. So that was really fun. Yeah.
This is aimed at you, certain people. This is all your fault.
I hope you're happy, certain people.
Is there like an Alan Smithy equivalent in Australia?
I feel like it's just Alan Smithy. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Crocodile Jack?
Struth McGillicuddy.
Half of the like that particular unit was such a mess, where it was like, just scheduling wise alone, it was a nightmare, to the point where it's like whoever was meant to be on camera would change depending on the day. And then like the actual like there was one day of shooting where I was doing the camera operating, and I was also like basically like teaching people like how to use the gear at the same time. And it was such a mess, and I've never been more glad to see my footage not be used in something. I've genuinely never been more glad. And then I worked in another a group that I'm not even a part of, their project for that class, and I did camera again, and I was like so much more proud of my work. I was like, wow, guys, I actually like this. I'm not miserable here. But yeah. What a semester.
My goodness, sir.
I have been through hell and back this semester. Everyone has. And there's genuinely no way next semester could be as crazy. I don't believe.
Mm-hmm. You might want to knock on some wood there. You don't want to...
You might want to buy that for $1.
Oh, thanks, Spearhoven.
But yeah. How about yourselves, fellas? Danny, how about you?
Oh goodness, weirdly similar in terms of just drowning in stuff, but without the added pressure of school and all that extra stuff. I do not miss school. My goodness, do I not. My main thing over the last handful of months, to keep it brief, has been book stuff. I wrote this book. It's crazy. I wrote the book almost 2 years ago. I'm getting to within a 2.5 year-ish range of when the book actually was brought to me. The publisher, so again, very long story. We don't have time, but this was a weird just set that anywhere. This is an instance where the publisher actually came to me. They found my writing through, the various outlets where I've done writing, like for the Godzilla novelization project and essays and magazines, all that stuff. They liked what I do, and they offered me a book deal, and I passed out. And then when I regained consciousness, I said, yes, I will do that. So that was 2.5 years ago almost. Like, that's crazy. The process, it's been a real learning experience. Like, just going through the process of what the pipeline of a book feels like and looks like. The writing process obviously is its own thing. I finished writing the book 1.5 years ago now, and it only has just come out in the UK. It's a UK publisher, back in February. And as of this recording right now, we are at the tail end of May, and it came out about a month and a pinch ago. So in that time and leading up to it, of course, I have done multiple other interviews. I interviewed with our friend Nathan Narchand. He runs a couple of different podcasts, maybe I think he like 7 or 8 podcasts. I don't know, a lot of podcasts. I interviewed with the a newspaper in the UK, which was really, really exciting.
Damn.
And yeah. Really, really cool. The Sunday Post in the UK, which is really exciting. And I have a couple of other interviews here coming up soon. I'm going to be interviewing with the amazing crew at Kaiju Live here pretty soon. And I'm going to be doing a G-Fest interview, which I'm pinching myself over. But in the middle of all that, it's crazy. In the middle of all that, I've also had to do self-promo for it. I've been coordinating back and forth with the publisher, my contact at the publisher, who's an awesome guy. And I also shot footage for a promo trailer for this book that our good mutual friend Kaiju Kim put together and edited into a gorgeous trailer. So it's just been book. I've been coordinating with a couple of local book shops and comic shops to do signings. So it's just been an absolute flippin' whirlwind. Very exciting stuff. But the crazy thing is, right, like that's just one thing, because I've got that going on. While that's happening, I can't say too much, but I have 2 other book projects that are actively being worked on, actively being written, planned, and a couple of other book proposals that I'm putting together to send out into the world here very soon. I have a short story that's almost done that's going to be published here soon. I have a couple of other books that people want to work on with me, but I just have to finish the other 19 first before I can touch those. I've got a short film that somebody wants to collaborate on and work with me to get done. I've had people ask me to write forwards for books and essays for books. I have G-Fest coming up. I'm doing a booty load of panels and a workshop. It's just bonkers. There's just so much going on. And that's just part of it. I have a friend who is local in town, and I'm going to be doing some advertising writing for some ads for her. So it's crazy. Like that's just, last I looked at my to-do list of just projects that are being worked on right now or need to be worked on before the end of this year, it's about 40 or 50 things strong. It's I think the French have a word for it. Too much. Actually, that's 2 words. That's fine. I don't
know
speak
if that's French.
It's because it isn't. I don't think it is. It's also late, so my sense of humor is not up to snuff. From where I'm recording, it is a nice, healthy, almost 1:30 in the morning right now. So I'm going to blame my lack of good humor on that.
That's
it's
early
actually
for this show.
That is true. That is true.
That is very true.
For me, it's so late that it's early.
This is such an early recording. There's like the sun is still wide out for me.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's
that's
crazy.
nice for you. That's nice for you.
It's
but
so
that's
early that it's not like donut shops are not opening up yet for me.
But aside from the one thing on my plate I've been working on for the last while, which I think we may circle back to later, that's been my plate of stuff. Elijah, what do you have to say for yourself?
Both of you sound like you have been incredibly busy. I
don't know how I'm awake right now.
I am not at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's
me when I lie.
That's no. Shut up.
I guess
Shut
I
up,
will.
Boy Scout.
I will go as quickly as I can here. I'll try to actually keep my stuff relatively short, and maybe condensed so that the next time we record, I don't go on a diatribe. So I believe the last time we recorded, I had started a new job, or I was about to start a new job. That has occurred. I am doing the job. I do not like the job. It is not grand. It's not good. And if they somehow find out that I do this show, I don't care. that's where we're at.
Famous last words.
Outside of that, I do apologize if I get... no, I am recording in a new spot. So I once again had to relocate the studio, my little studio I'm recording in. Now I have my very own office with a external monitor, a CRT TV, a VHS player, and a plethora of collectibles all around me, even alcohol. There is 32 cans, no, 42 cans of beer right next to me. So I have been remodeling my house. I've remodeled this once was a bedroom, now turned into an office. I remodeled the living room, and I've slightly remodeled a hallway. So we have been very busy over the last couple of months here. And on top of all of that, I got to work on yet another Blu-ray for SRS Cinema, Ishiro Honda, Memoirs of a Film Director, where I got to create a slideshow presentation for one of Jonathan's essays. I got to do 2 photo galleries. I pitched the interior liner notes. And I also conducted a 45-minute interview with Jonathan, talking about his career and the doc, and then just working with him on the other bonus features. So that's been pretty cool. I believe the last time that we spoke, I had not done this yet, but I got to write the official plot synopses for all 3 Visual Bandits films. So on Tubi and the standalone DVD releases, my plot synopses will be on the back of those. So that's pretty fun. Outside of that, I don't know if I've talked about this. I don't know if this was something new or even had started happening yet, but Ron has at SRS Cinema has been having me do interviews for him for the weekly newsletters, where I interview a film director about his project, and I've been able to do some PR stuff for that. So that's been really, really fun.
Nice.
Outside of that, I've been slowly working on the Saurians Unleashed and Saurians Attack Blu-ray, working with Mr. Takamiyamoto on that. I am starting work on Cyborg Tasuke Ishin here within the next 24 hours or so. That just got announced, so that's pretty cool. Outside of that, I can now say I am working with Toei once again. I am contributing to the Media Blasters release of Lady Battle Cop. So that's pretty exciting. I'm very grateful for Matt Burkett to be giving me the opportunity to work alongside him on this project. It might not be the only time we work together. We will see. On the topic of Toei, my Umbrella work, Uzumaki on 4K, was released. I got to have mine in hand, which was pretty fun. Outside of all of that,
still waiting to get mine.
Did you order?
No.
Did you order them?
That's why.
Oh, you need to order those. I need to.
That explains it.
I know. Shut up. I know.
It should be easy for you.
Yeah.
See, you got nothing. It's a skill issue. Outside of that,
I don't ever want to hear skill issue from you again.
Outside of that, oh god, it's been relatively crazy. There's more SRS work that is to be done. My year of licenses is still going strong. It seems like the reception's been positive, so that's pretty fun. I'm trying to think what else. I think I've been prepping for G-Fest, doing some panels, doing some other stuff, a little bit of press and whatnot, maybe a couple interviews. So that's pretty exciting. And yeah, it's been pretty crazy. We actually just wrapped on the Brush of the God Blu-ray. That is going into authoring as of tomorrow morning, to my understanding. As of this recording, it should be off to the duplicators and replicators here pretty quick. So that's it, just working on 3 Blu-rays at once, remodeling a house, working a full-time job with not a set schedule because my boss hates me. Again, I don't care. I've become Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, that's how his name said.
That's 100% nailed
me.
that.
I am not the original. That is me.
You are Ricky Gervais. Right.
Yes, so go thank your God, thank your agent, your producer, and then get off the stage. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get off the stage by asking, what tokusatsu? We can't dive too much into it, but let's hear maybe the most recent tokusatsu you've watched, or maybe a highlight tokusatsu. Rex?
Okay. In terms of tokusatsu I've watched recently, honestly, it's not been a lot as I've been frankly too busy. But there was one thing that I did actually end up going to recently. So a local art gallery in mine has a cinema that sometimes, they play some movies. They'll often have some black and white movies with live music, or they'll have little different screening sort of themes and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so they had this science fiction theme. I think they were playing I don't remember what they were playing, but there was one night where they were doing a double feature of 2 Japanese movies. The second movie was the live action Cells at Work movie, which I didn't get to see because I didn't have time. But the first was Matango.
Oh, Matango on the... Oh, that's...
Yeah, I saw Matango on the big screen from a print that was... I want to say it was a 1080p scan of a 35 millimeter. Oh. It looks nothing like the 4K or the 1080 or anything. Or the Blu-ray or anything, whatever. It looks nothing like them. It looks very different and very green, I would say. Very green. If I'm being critical, too green, too yellow at points, but otherwise it looked really nice. And yeah, it was Matango. I wish I had not worked that day because I was really tired watching it, but even as tired as I was during that, God, what a great movie Matango is. What a brilliant damn movie.
Yeah. Damn straight. It's so good. It's so
that
good.
is straight up Honda's best movie. It just is his best movie, I think.
We did do an episode.
I think there's a strong case. Oh my gosh, that's very cool. We really need to get Batongo playing somewhere around here. I'm sure there's like a weird underground, like midnight movie joint somewhere in the country that probably plays it every Thursday night or something weird, right? Like, I don't know.
I've told
It's
Elijah
like,
this, but Danny, in my area, there's this theater that plays Tommy Wiseau's The Room once every month alongside his Shark movie in a double feature, and they've been doing this for about like 2 years.
That is magnificent. Okay, Tokusatsu that I've seen. So a couple of weeks ago, over the weekend, I was doing a little bit of sculpting work. I'm sure that won't be relevant to what we talk about later. But whilst I was doing this completely inconsequential, and we won't talk about it later, sculpting work, I had just received the new Mill Creek. Well, it's not Mill Creek anymore. It's Alliance, but the new Ultraman Great and Powered set. The new Blu-ray set that has Ultraman Toward the Future and Ultraman the Ultimate Hero. And I had seen both of these before years ago, so they weren't new Ultra shows to me. But I decided, you know what? I need some Tokusatsu on the TV, but I need something that I'm not going to have to look up every 2 seconds to look at subtitles. And I could have thrown on a dub of something that I know like the back of my hand, but I had this brand new shiny Blu-ray set. I have a soft spot for both of those shows. I think Ultraman Toward the Future is a really fun, unique show. I think Ultimate Hero is as deeply flawed as it is. I cannot hate it. I just can't. I think it's a fun time. I know that's sacrilege. Feel free to crucify me, but I don't hate it. But I did pick Ultraman Great / Toward the Future. And I actually watched all 13 episodes in one day. I just put the 2 discs in, and I looked up when I heard a monster roar, and I just listened to, everybody talking. And I've seen it before. It was just a comfort watch, and I kept that on the whole day. And by the end of the day, I had powered through the whole thing. And
that joke was great.
Powerful
boy.
stuff.
Was it? It's really grating on my nerves.
I think these jokes are really going to start triggering people.
Oh, Decker, I hardly know her.
Is this really our arc of jokes?
Don't rube it in. Sorry, I'm done. It's bad. It's terrible. I'm never coming back on the show. It's my one shot to impress you guys. And
you were really rising there for quite a while, but
we could.
You just kept jacking around.
My shin hurts.
You're an ace at jokes, Rex. You're an ace.
Oh, jeepers!
By this point, we're going to keep making these types of jokes until we're 80.
I got about 7 seconds until I'm ditching this recording. 7. Oh, you can.
That's way
actually,
better than
if you listen carefully,
joke I had before. That's way better. I had to hold it. I had to hold it in to not say it.
You were holding, are you saying you were putting maximum effort into that?
Oh,
this is really the
nexus of all bad humor. God. Oh, we're not meeting the allegations. There's a vicious rumor going around, dear listeners, that Elijah and I are secretly the same person. And if you haven't heard this rumor, that's okay, because this is the first time we've ever talked about it publicly. So it's not really a rumor so much as it is a running joke. And you would be shocked and disturbed at how often what you just heard happens. It's like all the damn time. I'll say something, he says it at the same time, and it's like we're finishing each other's
sentences.
Thank you. I thought you were going to leave me hanging there for a second. Man, don't do that. You scared me. But our joke now is we're not beating the allegations that somehow some kind of weird time displacement has occurred. And I don't know.
We got
some cloning.
We got to find a way to beat these allegations eventually.
Oh.
I've really made these jokes dynamite.
You know what? These jokes are like a Mebius strip. They come from nowhere and go nowhere. You know? So anyway, so you watching Tokusatsu lately, Elijah? If you say Ultraman, great. I swear to God.
Well, I've really been putting the Omega into my Ultra experiences.
He's gone. Elijah.exe has stopped working. Somebody slap him on the back of the head and get him working again.
But I'm going to fight the urge to talk about Ultraman. I will have zero talk about Ultraman today during this saga of our recording. Instead, I'm going to talk about a return to nostalgia. I'll briefly highlight 2 films I've watched. I've watched Ghidorah, not Ghidorah, Ghidorah, the 3-headed monster, and Godzilla, King of the Monsters, on VHS.
Oh.
The way God intended.
As I mentioned earlier, remodeling this bedroom into an office, I was able to install a VHS player along with a CRT TV. And in the background, while I've been working, I have been enjoying some 4.3 standard definition VHSs. I've enjoyed watching both of the Showa films that I mentioned, and it's been very fun. And it's oddly, like, I can't watch. So I'll briefly explain. If I were to go back and watch the 2002 classic media disc releases of the Godzilla films, where they are 4.3 and they aren't high quality, I can't get through them. I literally cannot. I give up and I stop watching them. But for some reason, when I watched the VHSs, it made sense. It felt right. It looked better. It was a lot nicer. And I'm very happy I did it. Now that I have a VHS player, I'm going to be indulging in all the potential VHSs I can watch. I even have a Japanese VHS of Ultraman Tiga, Ultraman Dyna, Ultraman Gaia, The Battle in Hyperspace. And I'm halfway tempted to put that in just to watch the movie again on VHS.
Do it. I tell you what, this is something that I've talked about before. We've talked about it. I'm going to codify it right here, right now on recording. There's something about watching, if you watched a specific Godzilla film on VHS as a child, and that's how you discovered it, there is absolutely something magical at play there, because you can watch it in crystal clear quality on a nice 4K remastered Blu-ray, or see it on the big screen, Japanese subtitles, the whole 9 yards. And as beautiful as it is, as original, as authentic as it is to the original version as it is, it just never quite feels 100% right. And then you go put in the VHS and it's like, that's the version I saw as a kid. That's the version I fell in love with. For me, the big one like that is Megalon, of all things. Godzilla vs. Megalon has been cleaned up. It looks great now. I've seen it in theaters. I saw it at the drive-in last year, which was incredibly surreal. Drive-in theater playing Megalon. It was like I'd achieved some kind of nirvana, I think, watching the tail slide in English dubbed, but the tail slide on a drive-in movie screen. Perfection. Just classic stuff. But to me, Godzilla vs. Megalon doesn't quite feel right unless it's a bargain basement, cruddy pan and scan print on a quote-unquote not really public domain VHS tape that looks like somebody spilled coffee all over it. Right? You can't hear anything. You can't see anything. It's popping. The music is warbling. The tracking is all messed up. That's what Godzilla vs. Megalon looks like in my head. And it always will. As beautiful as it looks now, it'll always look like that in my head. And your story, Elijah, absolutely tracks with that, with watching Ghidorah.
I also want to point out that you can only watch the actual authentic original version of Megalon on VHS.
And you know what? You could say the same thing about Ghidra, because the classic media version of the US version is a reconstruction. If you want to get as authentic as possible, tape is your best bet. Same with Godzilla Raids Again, because the classic media version, a Gigantus specifically, has the Godzilla Raids Again title card, inserted into the print. If you want to watch it with the original Gigantus cut, you got to get the tape, right? So there's just something about the physical nature of those tapes and the fact that you're watching the authentic original thing. No reconstruction, as great as the reconstructions are. No digital anything. It just feels like your childhood was there the whole time and it didn't actually go anywhere. And I love that feeling.
Now, that's it, right? Rex, are we done?
Look, man, it's been a semester. I don't know what's happening anymore.
I mean, I get it. You've had a busy time. You've been working on a bunch of stuff. I know I've been working on stuff. And I very recently got to live my dream and sculpt monsters, which is something I love to do. But I actually got to do it for a project, a really cool project.
Whoa.
Yes, it's a documentary, and it's actually about a guy who makes monsters.
Peter Jackson?
Listen, guys, all I know is I made monsters for a documentary. It was about a monster maker, and somebody named Keizo was involved somehow.
And it was a graveyard smash. Yes! Yes, I remember now. Thanks, Bobby. We are here to talk about, for the first time, our project we've been doing since the podcast has went on hiatus. The podcast went on hiatus for a very specific reason, and we are here to now apologize?
Apologize for making a big project. Sorry, guys. We took away your brownies and gave you a cake.
Oops, we made a documentary.
And we are here to talk about the documentary, and this will be the first time we've addressed it. This will not be the only time we will address it. But I have here 5 questions that were provided to me by a good friend of the podcast, Kim Lacanilo, Kaiju Kim, who was gracious enough to send me 5 questions for us to go through and answer. And then we are going to open the floor to talking a little bit more, if anything we feel is necessary to address. So we're going to dive right into this and start with this very first question. And the way we're going to do this is we're just going to go down the line we've been doing. Rex, you'll start us off.
Okay.
Danny, and then I will wrap us up here, and then we'll move on to that next question. So, for Keizo Murase 500, why was it important for this film to be made?
Keizo Murase is one of the most legendary artists to grace the silver screen, the silver screen and TV screens of Tokusatsu. He's created, obviously, Godzilla, Ghidorah, Mothra, just on the Toho side. And then you've got Ultraman monsters like Red King, Hydra, Gomez, Kamen Rider, and so many other characters. He's basically this entire, medium of Tokusatsu. So much of the most famous and most iconic characters and franchises owe something to Keizo Murase.
This is the guy who sculpted your childhood. Literally sculpted your childhood. When we say that Keizo Murase was a consistent, uncut tether from the 50s, basically the birth of Tokusatsu as an art form, not its literal birth, but the late 50s, all the way up until just a few years ago when he passed away. And it is an unbroken line that connects the origins of this genre to now, and even now beyond his own lifespan after his passing. this one guy, like when we say that this one guy in his career encompasses the entire breadth of this art form, you can take that to the bank, because there is nobody else who can claim that. Murase was literally the only one. There's so few people left from back then who are still around to tell their stories. Not only was he around to tell his stories, not only was he still making things, not only was he the guy who made pretty much everything, just he had his hands in so much stuff, but he was continuing to do it, and he was continuing to mentor people. This gentleman is the center of a massive, just interconnected spider web, a huge network worth of things. You can point at just about any tokusatsu anything, and you can eventually do like a 6 degrees of separation, a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it'll take like 2 degrees and not 6, all the way back to this guy. You can go from him to anything else in tokusatsu, and I guarantee you it's connected in some way. And that's why it was important to tell his story, but it was also important to tell his story because his story had never been told in this way. His career has been explored in chunks in other documentaries and TV specials. There's an amazing documentary that chronicles the last few years of his life and his last big project, but there's never been anything that started at the beginning, literally the dude's birth, and worked its way up to when he passed and preserved all of that stuff in one place. And that is what we did.
I think the biggest important things have been addressed here, right? There's not much I can really add to that. But I will say 2 more things. The thing about it is this documentary first will be available on the Blu-ray release of Brush of the God, a film that is, Kevin Derendorf put it best, it's a self-eulogy, right? It wasn't intended to necessarily be, but it is. Anybody who watches it can feel the Murase influence. It was his first and last film he directed. It just is riddled with Murase-isms, whether that's references or callbacks or just subtle nods, or even himself at one point, minor spoiler alert. And when I was tasked to work on Brush of the God, by the time that we were able to work on it, Mr. Murase had passed away. And from the moment that we got the green light, I knew we had to pay tribute to him. And Danny said it great. There's nowhere else where you will get from his birth till his death. I can't think of a better way to showcase and pay tribute to one of Tokusatsu's greatest filmmakers, except introducing everybody to who he is and what he did. And I think that is what I really think is important. Furthermore, we live in a world where there's not many documentaries on the genre of kaiju and tokusatsu in English. And when you look at what there is, Danny, you actually did some of the deep dive research into what documentaries actually existed for kaiju. And unfortunately, I would say probably a third of them, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Danny, but about a third of them are trailer compilations with a little bit of background of, narration of, in 1964, Toho continued their Godzilla franchise with 2 movies. It's stuff like that. It's not very detailed. It's not very informative.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun, but that is a bulk of the quote-unquote documentaries there are on this genre. Now, you have some amazing ones that have come out in recent time. Shiro Honda, Memoirs of a Film Director, Dawn of Kaiju Eiga, bringing Godzilla down to size. There are a plethora of great documentaries produced about the genre in the last probably 20-ish years, Now, there's only one other documentary that focuses on one aspect of the genre. That's the Yoshiro Honda doc. And I don't necessarily know if the Honda doc was an influence on the genesis of this project, but I think it's important that there are projects like the Honda doc, like this Murase doc, that focus in on one key element, one element that can be traced into the greater universe. And I think that is something here is really going back to its roots. The story of Murase with Tokusatsu starts in 1958, so there's only a handful of films that predate him. And following 1958, it's really hard to not find something he didn't influence. That is something that I think really showcases the importance of this film. For Keizo Murase 400, we have what challenges were faced in the making of this doc. Now, for this one, I'm going to go a little bit out of order. We're going to start with Danny. Danny, you were primarily the writer on the project. That was your big influence, is devising that narration. We're going to start with you, since the script is the beginning of the process. It's the beginning of the depth of pre-production. And then we'll go to Rex to talk about post-production. And then I will talk about, I guess, in general.
The entire thing was full of a lot of interesting challenges. Nothing insurmountable. Certainly. I mean, the movie got done, so it was nothing that stymied us. I think that production in general overall was free of like dramatic hiccups, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a challenge. So I was primarily the writer for this thing. So when you're listening to, when you watch the film, all the narration that you're hearing is with the exception of a couple of moments where a couple things got tweaked or the narrator said something not quite the way I wrote it. What you're hearing is what I wrote. That's all me. And the script needed to do a couple of things other than just be words being spoken, because narration doesn't really work like that. It's not just a bunch of words. One, the narration, the script had to be something of a spine for the whole thing. So by writing the script, I wasn't just writing a script. I was kind of plotting out the skeleton and the flow of how the film was going to be put together. So I couldn't just say, in this year, this happened, and then he met this guy, and then it wasn't like that. It needed to have a flow to it, and it also needed to have the feeling of a story being told. This is a story that's being presented to you. So it's not supposed to, obviously I come from the world of I've written fiction, I've written nonfiction, I have a book, but narration is not supposed to be a book. It can't sound like a book. It can't read like a book. It has to be written for the ear. So I couldn't just write a bunch of research out and have that just be it. It would have been too dense. It would have been too thick to wade through. That's a lot to ask an audience to listen to and digest in real time. As it happens when I'm not sculpting things or writing books, I am a writer by day as well. That's my day job. I'm a marketing writer and a creative writer. And primarily one of the things that I do is I do write for the ear. So I'm able to kind of take larger ideas and distill them down into something that's friendly on the ear, if that makes any sense. So that was part of the challenge. It couldn't just be a brain dump of a bunch of research. The script also had to be researched quite a lot. I already had a pretty strong knowledge base of a fair amount of Murase stuff that I was able to put in pretty quickly, but I ended up doing a lot of additional research. And even that, I'm going to just go ahead and say was dwarfed by the amount of additional research that Elijah was doing at the same time. And he was feeding me information on stuff that I had no context for, including Murase's multiple stints in Taiwan, which I knew barely anything about. And Elijah dove into that, shared his research with me, and then I converted that into narration. So it was a lot. Like the entire writing process was me, but it wouldn't have happened without the research and the back and forth that Elijah and I had. So making sure all of that was distilled into one script, and that it still sounded good, and it could still be spoken, and it still told the story, and it still had moments of storytelling, I suppose, to it, but it balanced the research, and it presented it in a way that was not too dense for the listener. It was a very significant juggling act. It really, really was. It took a couple of drafts to really lock it in, to get it, where it needed to be, and to figure out what needed to be explored a little bit deeper, and what needed to be, maybe we just mention this and we move on a little bit. What do we park on? What do we not park on? What needs to be parked on? What can we realistically say? We can mention it and then we don't have to stay on it too long. So a lot of tiny decisions being made, a lot of very purposeful decisions, right down to the words being chosen. And even something like formatting the script for specifically for Matt Burkett to do his narration, which he did an amazing job, of course. I wanted to make sure that the script that he got had italics where he was supposed to emphasize words and pronunciations for certain words. So all of that stuff, it was a beast of a script to write. And by the time I was done with it, it was about 30 pages. It was a big boy. It is one of the biggest things I've ever written. And I did overwrite it, knowing that a lot of what I put in there would be replaced with talking head interviews and things like that. So I did overwrite it, but I figured it was better to have that stuff and then delete it later than to not have it and I have to now scramble and write it. So it was a series of balancing acts. It wasn't just like side A and side B being balanced. It was like trying to find an equilibrium, balancing about, 11 or 12 spoons on your nose all at once. It was very, very complex, but ultimately very rewarding to kind of whittle down. And I mean, there were plenty of other challenges in there. I think I've talked enough, but that's a pretty good overview of like just the script. B-roll was another thing. Well, we can probably get into that a little bit later, but just in terms of the writing, that's where I found the most challenges to be.
I'm going to jump in here and kind of add on to what you said there, Danny, because the writing process was, it would be a lot of, I remember when we would review my interviews, we would then, there would be comments of like, okay, maybe we need to add this bit of dialogue in the narration to set up these interviews, or how do we were, I was really trying to focus in and work with you on trying to figure out how the narration would mesh with the interview clips, right? And how we could do, I called them half thoughts, person A says, well, this was really cool. And then narration says information about sculpting. Well, stuff like that, whatever it was to really articulate and create a flow to really make it make sense, but also move quickly and not be a chore for audience members to listen to. And that is all stuff that you do have to consider when writing the script. I know for probably, I'm going to say maybe a month, might be a little less, might be a little more. You might know exact time. I don't know. It was a lot of writing the script, me reading, comments on script, and then at some points it would be comments to the comments, to the comments, to the comments, to a phone call, to the conversation, to the rewrite, to another comment. It would be a lot of collaboration in getting certain things figured out. Or should we include this? What is the game plan for what titles, what projects to stop on, and a lot of research. I mean, the script was being rewritten a couple days before Matt got the narration. You know, we were still finding information. We were still adding little tiny things in here and there. With Murase, it's like this never-ending well of just information.
We kept finding things. That's the crazy part. We kept finding new information. Oh my gosh, he worked on this TV show. Oh my gosh, he did work on this for this theater company and this restaurant, like whatever it was. It could be something tiny. And we operated on the assumption, not the assumption, but on the philosophy that at least for that first pass at the script, we should try to mention everything, that like as much as of what he worked on as we could, and then whittle it down from there. Because talking about literally everything would have resulted in a 9-hour film, right? It would have been crazy. We were changing things pretty quickly. We were making alterations. I think the other big thing, and I'm glad you brought this up, Elijah, is that a documentary that uses narration is a tightrope walk, because you don't want the narrator to say, you don't want him to say too much, especially when we have so many great guests that we got for this documentary. This cast, and we'll get into it, it's stacked. The caliber of human beings we got to be in this thing was amazing, and they have the most amazing stories to tell. We want to hear from them. We want to hear what they have to say. And editing all of that into the right order and getting the clips where you want it is, you know, obviously that's where a film starts to come together. But you don't want the narrator to step on that ever. You want the narrator to be the storyteller and the bridge between when the talking heads start doing their thing, and finding that balance to make sure that, you know, I would much rather hear what the children of Keizo Murase have to say than have to listen to anything I wrote. You don't want to hear that. You want to hear them. So how do you use the narration to build a bridge that tells a story from point A to point B, and then point B is fully explained by the children of Keizo Murase, for example, and then you move on from there. You allow them to have their moment to talk, and then you string together the next bit. And how do you put a story together like that with the narration? That's the trick about writing a documentary with narration. You don't want him to do too much heavy lifting, but he has to do just enough heavy lifting that it helps to tell the story. And finding that balance was definitely a challenge.
It's a very active point of everything. It felt like every day. And, you know, we went from, like, the original intention of the doc was a 14-minute tribute, right? And then it became a lot more, and then it was, okay, we have to make this smaller, and by the end of it, it ended up being bigger than what we were originally going to then do after making it bigger and then making it smaller again. It constantly was changing and constantly developing. The final version we got is still, like, I don't want to say missing, right? Because it's a pretty honest to God complete story. But what got cut was a lot. You know, it wasn't just one thing, or, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there. Like, honestly, they're an example of this. And I realized this after, you know, finalizing the doc. The G-Fest Mangled Skyscraper Award at one point was going to be a bigger part of towards the end of the doc. But as the project moved forward, a heavier focus on his return to the film industry with Howl, with EK Boys, Monster and the Old Man, Brush, became more important than that. And so we then switched that from being included as a what was going to be like a benchmark. It suddenly became something that it got mentioned, and then we had to move on because there was so much story to tell. That one thing couldn't be more than just a brief mention. And all of that stuff that you don't know until you get into the post-production side, which, Jackson, you're going to tell us some of the challenges that came from that.
Yeah. I mean, just to quick first add on to what you said. Yeah, like with stuff like that, with documentary in particular, you find your story as you go. Like when you go into a documentary, you go in with a rough story, with roughly the story, like a general idea of the story you want to tell. But through research and interviews and whatnot, the story changes, and even more so in documentaries where you're at the liberty of having the central figure still alive. Now, we weren't necessarily at that liberty. We did have access to some archival footage of Mr. Murase that we could work with, but ultimately the story came from interviews and the diligent research of both of you two. And so from there, it was my job then to construct the story visually and audibly with all of that interview footage, B-roll, various B-roll and narration, etc., etc. This is all of our first time doing a feature-length project, and I can say very safely that it was quite the challenge.
I think for me, one of the biggest things was from January to February, I conducted 21 interviews with people who live in Pacific Standard Time, Eastern Standard Time, Central Standard Time, Japan Standard Time, working with people in Australian Time, working with people in the UK, working with translators and working with, the joys of internet softwares. And, communicating with a team in Japan, filming interviews as well. We have a handful of those. It was exhausting. There were some days in January, I believe it might have been February, where I would do an interview. I would go use the restroom, and then I'd have to come back and I'd be on another interview. And these interviews were 2 hours, I think we did the math, and the total, the average time was about an hour, but some were over. I think the total amount of interview footage between what I did and what our team in Japan did and the archival Murase interview footage we had access to, we had 28 hours worth of interviews. And that's not including the subtitling, that's not including the translating, that's not including the color corrections or the actual editing or the sound designing. It is something that was absolutely exhausting. I think, if I remember right, my personal best was I conducted 4 interviews in the span of about 8 hours. And it was exhausting. Having a social battery, that's something I think is quite literally one of the most unknown elements of a documentary when you're interviewing people, is you have to have that social battery to ask. I would say it was about 20 questions per person. Ask 20 questions plus follow-up questions, maybe working with a translator. It was something that I never even thought about thinking of. And whenever I did it, it was like, oh my God, I don't want to talk to another person. My social battery was just gone. And that was very interesting. I really, really enjoyed learning that part of it, there was learning curves to everything from the idea process to the scripting to the recording to the interview questions to conducting the interviews to editing them, reviewing them, and everything in between. I had a hand, speaking on a personal note, I had a hand in every part of production. Whether it was the editing or the interviews or the scheduling or the reviewing or the scripting, I had a hand in everything at one point, and man, there was so much, it almost was like there's not enough time in the day. There were multiple nights where I either went to bed at 8 a.m. or I just didn't sleep. same for, interviews. I would do like 2 interviews, one in Eastern, then the next in Pacific. And then I'd have to get on calls with Japanese guests, and, I'd be conducting those for, 3 hours and working with the translator on that, and getting those questions, to the translator, and everything in between. It's a lot of scheduling, and it's a social battery that you have to maintain. And that is such an unspoken part of all of this. Yeah, there's a lot. There's quite a few challenges. I would say that it's impacted us all in different ways. And this transitions into Keizo Murase, the last monster maker for 300. How has making this doc impacted you as a fan of Tokusatsu? Rex, we're going to start with you, then Danny will come back to me. What do you got?
Okay, as a fan of Tokusatsu, specifically with that question in particular, it's kind of hard to almost describe how it impacted me as a fan beyond like saying something like kind of shallow-ish about what it was about, it was a incredibly cool experience to be working on this documentary with like about someone that made Godzilla and all these other monsters, but then also had the involvement of certain people whom have worked on other of my favorite films, such as Godzilla Final Wars and whatnot, my favorite movie of all time. Several people who were on that movie were involved and helped in bringing this project to life. So as a fan, it's been one of the most unique, exciting, and terrifying and daunting experiences of this very hectic last few months or so. For me personally, it's like I was the editor, obviously. I would say as many people as were involved overall in the production, it's us three sitting here in our chairs talking into the microphone right now who really were the 3 main people the most heavily involved. And I think it was an incredibly stressful and taxing experience on us all. It was one where for me it was as you kind of said, there was this very much a learning curve to the whole experience. This is my first time, I've been using editing software since I was 12 years old, but this was really this is my first major project. The most I've ever worked with someone was with you for this podcast, and that's really about it. Maybe I've helped some other people with some minute-long edits here and there, and offered some words of advice to other people. But beyond that, this is by far the biggest project I've ever worked on, and involved me doing so much. I'm very glad I had this experience. It was one of those things where it was when you first asked me, this was I knew this was a very daunting project, and something that I didn't know if I would be able to complete. But it was something my friend said to me about them choosing to move back to Australia stuck with me. It's if they didn't want to move back to Australia, they would regret it. They feel they'd regret not trying. And yeah, for this, if I had not done it, I would have deeply regretted not trying.
I think one of the biggest ones has to be the amount of knowledge that I absorbed for this thing. I love learning new stuff about this genre. And I eat up new facts about this stuff like Tic Tacs, right? I love it. It's just so much fun to discover new things. And Elijah, I know you for certain can empathize with this. The further we dig into this stuff as fans, as historians of the topic, whatever you want to say, there's always that feeling at a certain point where you think you've hit the bottom, or at least you're close. And there's that kind of depressing feeling of, great, now what? Have I learned everything there is? And I learned years ago to never tell myself that and never ask that question, because there's always more. There's always more to learn. There's always some new context to be gleaned from a new piece of information that you translate or you stumble across without even looking for it. Or in the case of something like this, we're interviewing people, right? Elijah, you interviewed all these people and they had some incredible stories to tell. We got some amazing insights into things for this documentary. Keizo Murase and the techniques he used on individual films, which I thought was really, really cool. The fact that he went home and listened to Ray Charles and fed his cats, even that kind of stuff is precious to me to learn, especially since, he's no longer with us. These stories are amazing. The people talking about him, the people who knew him, preserving those stories, but also just the knowledge. I loved learning about all that stuff. And again, to your point, Elijah, there was so much stuff that was cut out that we couldn't possibly have put into this thing because it was 27 or 28 hours worth of just stuff. This is no way. So a lot of those stories didn't end up making the cut because that's just how filmmaking works. But all that knowledge is now in our heads, right? Because we absorbed it for this film, even though it's not in the film. So the stuff that's in there is some of the best of the best. We made sure the best of the best stayed. And even then, there's so much that I learned. I value the opportunity to learn more about this stuff every chance I get. And this was a tremendous opportunity because Keizo Murase really is an important figure in my personal life. And this is also how it's affected me. So that's kind of the academic way it affected me. But on a personal level, I've had a connection with Murase-san for a very, very long time. The minute I learned as really a teenager that he was the guy who did all this stuff, are you kidding me? This guy touched all these different creatures and all these different franchises at all these different studios. The minute I learned that the same guy who did, got the Heisei, the Heisei 90s Godzilla films, those first two, also did Varan all the way back in the 50s. My mind was blown. Even before I knew his name, I had obviously fallen in love with these films since the age of 6. I loved them. And I wanted nothing more as a youngster, all the way up through when I got older. I just wanted to make monsters, man. I just wanted to make monsters. That's all I wanted. Now I get to write about monsters. I get to make them through words, but I also get to make them through my art, my own personal art. And it was because of seeing Keizo Murase remaking Varan for the DVD bonus feature that was on the Japanese DVD of Varan and then was ported over to the Media Blasters version. It was because of just watching those films and hearing his stories and hearing, just knowing he'd worked on all these things. It was his work in general, the genre in general, that really made me stop and think, is this something that I could ever hope to do one day? Could I make a monster for a movie? It's so funny. I went to school, got my art degree, hoping to learn the fundamentals that I could then maybe one day take into working on a monster for a film, whatever that happened to be. It's absolutely not lost on me that I got to live that dream and achieve that goal for myself and really just kind of pat my 6-year-old self on the head a little bit. The other thing that I did was I got to do some sculpting for this film. We needed B-roll. And we ended up kind of going ham on the B-roll. We needed a lot of B-roll. That was its own whole challenge. But nobody asked me to do it. I just decided I wanted to do it. I took it upon myself to gather my clay. I've got lots of clay where I am. And I filmed myself making some Keizo Murase creatures, some of his most iconic creatures. I got to make some monsters for this film, and it is not lost on me at all that, all these years later, after having been inspired by Murase to want to make my own monsters for a movie, I got to make monsters for a movie about this guy who made monsters, who made me want to make monsters. It's a beautiful little full circle moment that is really genuinely touching to me. And having those little moments preserved, like, that's my tribute to him. That's like my ultimate tribute to him. I wanted to make these for him and to show his techniques. And I did use, for the most part, traditional techniques to make these heads. It was a great moment of exploration for me to get to use these traditional techniques, but it was really a thrill to get to show them off. It really is very special to me to recreate some of his creatures for this film. I tend to connect with this stuff a lot through my own creativity, whether it's writing or my personal art, and to have it be in the film is, I don't really have words for that.
I think both of those are really good. This might sound cocky of me, so I apologize. A lot of the people I got to work with here, I had previously collaborated with, or I knew them, or I've met them, or something akin to that. There were a handful of people that I hadn't met previously, so getting to meet them was really cool. But this oddly felt like what I was used to. I don't recall. If you don't know, I directed a short film in 2014, or not 2014, 2024, called Edo Kami no Gyakushu, where I used miniature trees, miniature, sets, and had a monster costume made by Danny. On that production, like, my whole outlook changed, because I had done it in whatever crude fashion that I could do it. When it came to this film, I think where it really changed for me was, usually it is me plus one person, and that one person's there for production to, if I need them to hit record on the camera while I'm off doing something, they hit record on the camera and I go off and do something, or whatever the case may be. But maybe just further grasping the collaborative aspect of everything. Maybe that is what I would perhaps changed for me when it comes to tokusatsu, is really grasping more on a personal level just how collaborative everything was. Outside of that, I really think the international appeal of tokusatsu was something that changed for me, grasping that a little bit more, having a little bit more of an understanding as to why films like The Cat or A Valiant Villain or Investiture of the Gods utilize Japanese technicians. And that's not just, those titles. We're talking the Super Inframan, we're talking EK Boys, stuff like that, and just learning why those films utilize Japanese technicians. And I really enjoyed learning that. So perhaps that is my possibly really cocky or really lackluster response to that question. Something I will say that I learned, this is more so on Brush, the audio commentary for Brush of the God, and not necessarily the doc. And that is the fact that a lot of people are very quick to say, oh, CGI is not better than real practical stuff, and practical stuff will forever be the superior method. There's a huge misconception on Brush of the God. And I think on Murase, the world of tokusatsu is only practical, and anything short of that is not as good. Perhaps that's more of an old guard, if you will, approach to the medium. But something that Murase said multiple times is he wanted to see a world where practical effects like monster costumes, wire work, puppets, real flames on screen, whatever the case may be, practical can mix and blend with the world of CGI and together they can make something truly amazing. And that is something that I think is really important. And I hope that perhaps we see that in the future. And I think maybe for me, especially, I have grown to be more welcoming to the idea of utilizing CGI to create superior tokusatsu, while also holding on to some of those traditional elements to make something truly remarkable. And this actually leads into Keizo Murase for 200. In a world of films made with CGI, how will this film shine a light on the amount of hard work and dedication that goes into suit making? And I think I established enough of a prelude, a precursor, that I don't need to answer this question further, but I would love to hear what you two have, starting with Rex and then Danny.
Keizo Murase, the last monster maker, shines a light throughout his whole career. And I think, Danny, you kind of put it best in the documentary yourself, where you kind of describe how throughout his career there is a gradual evolution in Keizo Murase's style. There is this evolution in Murase's style.
You can't get much more of celebratory of an art form than by examining it through the lens of one of its greatest practitioners. I think by, learning about Ray Harryhausen, you learn a lot about stop motion animation as a result of just being interested in him as a person. It opens your eyes to the techniques that he used. We talk a lot as a community, a kaiju community, about our love of practical effects and our love of tokusatsu as an art form, as a medium or a collective of mediums, and as a genre. And that's all good. And we have to keep doing that because we have to keep this art form alive. We have to keep doing it. But talking about just the art form itself is only one way to do it. Another way to do it is to talk about somebody, somebody who was in the trenches and actually did this stuff, actually worked on these things. We talk a lot about Eiji Tsuburaya. We talk a lot about him, but you can go deeper. What's tokusatsu if you don't have anything to point the camera at? And that's what Murase did. He was the guy who got his hands covered in clay dust and foam and paint and got down on his hands and knees and figured this stuff out. And he innovated, sometimes through the silliest, quirkiest methods. The Varan peanut story is famous for a reason. Because who does that? Who looks at a peanut shell and goes, I know how to make my monster now. And then he actually, went and did it. It reframes tokusatsu in a far more kind of in-your-face, tactile, this is how they did it kind of a way. It's more than simply pointing the camera at something and making it look good. That's half the battle. But the other half is actually getting your hands dirty with the clay and the foam and the paint. And I have to imagine that actually hearing about how these things were done, and we're very lucky in this film that there are multiple instances where Murase is actually telling the viewer himself through archival interviews. And we also have people who knew him and worked with him talking about it. Again, not to like pat myself on the back too much, but I think there's a real value in actually seeing that stuff done on screen, which this film is able to do because of the artistic recreations that were filmed for it, where you see the clay being stretched and squeezed and turned into teeth and claws and fangs and, and tails and all that good stuff. And you see the Varan texture being applied, and you see the rubber hose being cut and put into the top of the Varan head, and the mighty Peking Man and all that stuff. You get to see all of those things done on camera. That to me creates a stronger connection between the viewer and the art form. I would love to think that any part of this film could play any part in somebody out there wanting to try this stuff for themselves, or at least trying to understand it a little bit closer. There's no reason anybody out there can't do exactly what I did. Go get some clay, go get some rocks, go get a wooden tool and make a Varan. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And I think that's something that Murase himself would have appreciated, the idea of passing the stuff on to a new generation.
This might have transitioned and answered your Keizo Murase for 100. So we're going to start with you if you have anything else to add, and then we'll go to Jackson. We'll end on me. Without giving away too much, what insights from the special guests might viewers find surprising? What do you want viewers to take away from this doc?
I guess I definitely did kind of answer that a little bit. I almost feel like I don't want to get too much into the interview insights. I feel like there's a lot of surprising stuff in there. I don't want to spoil too much of, but I'll keep it kind of vague, and I'll say that the personal insights in Murase's life, not just his career, but like his life, I found to be very, very fascinating. The fact that this movie received the blessing of his family to move forward was beyond words. I mean, what do you even say to that? But beyond that, we were also able to, like, his two sons are in this film being interviewed, and they had some very interesting stories. I'll share one. I'll spoil one. The fact that Murase, as shared in one of these interviews, Murase loved motorcycles. He would motorcycle. He would cycle across Japan. And that the idea of this awesome guy with his glasses and his hat, he's probably wearing a helmet, who knows, but just the idea of him on his Harley Davidson, and it was a Harley Davidson. It legitimately was he had a Harley. And he's just cruising around Japan, just makes me smile. And I never would have guessed in a million years, that Keizo Murase, the guy who sculpted Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Gamera, Mothra, and Yungari, and you name it, he sculpted it. When he wasn't doing that, he was on his hog, man. He was cruising around Japan on his motorcycle. Little stories like that are humanizing, I think. So I think people are going to really like hearing stories like that. There are others. I will not spoil them, but to reiterate what I said before, I think that something that's very important to me, and I think to all of us, is that we got the opportunity through this film to be the custodians of Murase's legacy. In a small way. We got to be custodians of it. We got to be part of passing it along. We got to be part of telling his story and just continuing his mission. And what was his mission toward the end of his life? Big part of it was making sure that the next generation keeps the art form alive, right? That even if all we do is we sit and we watch these movies that he worked on, we don't ever have to pick up clay. We don't ever have to pick up foam. It's cool if you do. I recommend it. It's fun. But the simple act of sitting and watching these movies and loving them and celebrating them and sharing them, you are part of that next generation of people who's going to help the legacy carry on. And if you want to take it a step further and you want to grab that clay and that foam and that paint, then it would mean a heck of a lot to all of us if this movie inspired somebody to do that. Maybe the next generation of monster makers are watching. And that possibility is very, very meaningful to me. And that's something Murase cared about a lot. Who's gonna carry on the torch and who's gonna continue to do this? Maybe that person, or if we're lucky, on a good day, many, many people who see this and are inspired by his story will carry that torch on in some way. Wouldn't that be cool? I think that would be really, really amazing. If people can leave inspired after having watched this, I think that's the best thing this documentary can do.
Kind of adding to that, if we want to talk interviews that really gave some interesting takeaways, I definitely think it was very important on the post-production side on my end, and I know Elijah definitely agreed with me, of keeping as much as possible of those personal anecdotes in those interviews, especially from Naoto, especially from Fumitsugu Murase's sons. Those were some of the most important things that we wanted to keep throughout the documentary. They were very insightful into who Murase is, who or was as a person, but beyond that as well, like just as a kaiju fan, there are a lot of just really interesting insights into Murase's whole body of work, some of which come from Murase himself. We spend a bit of time talking about King Kong vs. Godzilla and Murase working with Haruo Nakajima. There we have Brett Hominick and Edgar Jaseski talk about the Blue Ghidorah story and some of the infamous contradictions around that, and provide some interesting context to that. And there's so many more interviews like that with just such a variety of guests of all different backgrounds and whatnot, many of whom have worked on tokusatsu, many of whom work for film archives or are film historians, have written on this topic, etc., etc. There's so many unique insights that many people provided that give you a really unique view into Murase's whole career and Murase himself as a person.
I think that's all very good. I think the only thing I can add really is I'm going to give a shout out to Nobuo Nakano, which courtesy of Yoshikatsu Ishii. He was kind enough to help me get interviews with both Mr. Nakano and Mr. Ogawa, who were the director and producer on Monster and the Old Man. So they followed Murase around for 7 years, and they got to talk to him and work with him and interact with him on Brush, on EK Boys, on Haniwata Piers, even though that's not really mentioned, that they were around for that time. They were around for Murase's next film, which we have some pretty cool information about as well. It's all very good. The reason I highlight Nobuo Nakano is he gives us some of the most interesting pieces of information about just Murase in general, and some of his interview made it into the narration as those more personal stories. He brought a ton to the table, and I'm incredibly grateful for his kindness and for his knowledge and information that he provided. He was kind enough to let me watch his documentary, which was quite amazing. He just was an amazing person. Him and Mr. Ogawa just were really, really kind, really nice, and just you could tell they were really close with Mr. Murase. And it just was really nice to be able to work with people that knew him so well and wanted his story to be told. And that's really nice. And that's why I guess the last thing I really want to bring up here is there is another documentary. In English, it's been misreported as a documentary about Murase. It's more so a documentary about the last 7 years of Murase's life and working on Brush and EK Boys, specifically those two titles. It's a great look into the day-to-day with his last 7 years. This is, I would say, a nice sibling. It's a sibling. It comes from the same blood, but they are not the same thing. Monster and the Old Man is forever going to be great documentary, and I hope it can get brought stateside. And it really shows people who Murase was in his day-to-day. Whereas our documentary shares with you the history of Keizo Murase and his legacy. So they're nice siblings. And the fact that we were able to involve the team behind that project into ours, I think really is something special. So with that, we have answered our 5 questions here. And before I have one last thing to say, but before we can go into that, I just want to establish, is there anything that we have not talked about that somebody would like to bring up here?
Clay play. That's it. That's all I got. I'm not even going to explain that. You get no context.
Just clay play.
None. Not a clay play. Now, okay, briefly. As part of kind of bulking out the visuals for this, we needed B-roll, as I mentioned before. And I started uploading brief little clips of me, just doing strange things with clay. It was just close-ups of my hands. I rolled it into balls. I squished cylinders. I made teeth and claws and pointy bits and rolled the clay. I just did this a couple seconds of footage each, and I uploaded these each, and I started calling it clay play. Do you need more clay play? I think I did it like once or twice, and then Elijah picked it up, and it just became, I would start getting notes saying, we need more clay play. We need more clay play. And I'm like, okay, here we go. What have I done? I started something here. So, when you see the movie and you see hands smushing clay and, making shapes, A, those are my hands, and B, clay play. I just want you to think clay play. Every time you watch it, just think clay play. That's really it. That's the most, if you take anything out of this whole episode, just take clay play. That's the most important thing. Away. Right there.
More important than Murase himself.
Honestly, I feel like, well, I mean, in a inaccurate kind of way. Yeah. I mean, in a wrong kind of way. No, honestly, I think we covered a lot of ground there. I mean, we could sit here and talk about 1,000 different things about how we had to sit and watch all 25 hours of that interview material and basically just pluck whatever important bits we thought we needed out of it and then whittle that down maybe 2-3 more times until we had the clips that we wanted and all the refining that happened. My goodness. I could tell you about the look on the face of the guy I bought the clear vinyl hosing from when I told him I was working on a movie prop. That was fun. Like 1,000 different things that we all did. The couple of late nights where we went through footage and, had to listen to all that stuff over and over again. A lot of different things, but I think we covered most of the fundamentals here. I mean, honest to goodness, I think we probably repressed most of it, right? Like
I don't know what you're talking about.
What? See? Okay. You proved my point. What point? Don't know. Don't remember. My goodness. What a process. What a process. Anytime somebody tells you making a movie is easy.
I don't think
which they should never say, because that's
I don't think they say that. Look, I'd heard the statement making a movie is hard before, and it's like I'd worked on short projects before and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, that's true. Now I'm like, yeah. Context. You're now cursed with knowledge. Yeah, is the thing. You now know what it's like to edit a whole thing. We're no longer green. No, we're not. We're not. I don't know what color we are now. Like maybe like purple or blue or we're not green though. Man, you can really tell it's 3 a.m. where I'm at. Oof. My goodness. Deep sighs indeed. Elijah, what do you got for us?
Well, I just have one last thing to say.
And what is that?
Hello. I'm Elijah, and I have a Kaiju and Tokusatsu problem. Joking aside, I am Elijah Thomas. I am a writer. I've written for GodzillaMovies.com, Kaiju Ramen Magazine, Kaiju United, and my writing has also been featured in the book Giant Bug Cinema, a Monster Kid's Guide from Bear Manor Media. I also contributed the foreword for the book G Cinema, an exploration and celebration to Japan's Monster King by Daniel DiManna from Fonthill Media.
No comment.
I've been given the privilege to work with my good friends at Giant Monster BS on their second season as a creative consultant covering independent kaiju films. I'm also a bonus feature producer for SRS Cinema, working on various titles such as Yuzo, The Biggest Battle in Tokyo, Hoshi 35, Outer Man, and Brush of the God, along with various other titles. You can order these Blu-rays on srscinema.com or the DVDs from any major online retailer. And as now I can talk about it, I also contributed a audio commentary to the 4K release by Umbrella Entertainment for the cult hit J-horror film Uzumaki, which is available on any boutique label website. Bear in mind, it is a Region B Blu-ray. I'm also a filmmaker. You can check out some of my stuff on YouTube at ET13 Productions, where you can see some of my older short films and old really bad YouTube videos, along with an ever-growing playlist that features all of my appearances on YouTube. And you can see my first feature film, Keizo Murase, The Last Monster Maker, on the Blu-ray release of Brush of the God, with more distribution coming soon. You can also check out my action figure photography on my Instagram at ET13_productions and my X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Thanks, Danny.
You're welcome.
At the same handle. And Rex, where can people find you at?
Well, dear listeners, you can find me on YouTube at Rexino, on Twitter at Rex_Xenomorph, and on Instagram, Rex_Xeno.
I guess I have to say something here, right? And if you nailed it.
Sorry,
and
I was supposed to transition to Danny, but I forgot. Oh shit!
I was being so patient.
Oh, my bad.
No,
Chief.
it's all good.
I legitimately forgot I was supposed to do that transition.
Oh no, that's funny. That
My bad, Chief.
it's almost like we're really tired after staying up late to make a movie or something. So,
Danny, where can we find you
Yes.
at?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Rex.
For one,
I don't think they'll notice. I think we nailed it. You can find my brand spanking new book, G Cinema, an exploration and celebration of Japan's Monster King, pretty much wherever books are sold. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, Books A Million, a big old pile of other sellers around the Europe. And I want to say just about every permutation of Amazon carries it. So it's out there. You can also check out my other baby, which is the Godzilla Novelization Project at, get this, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. Crazy, I know. You can follow along with my various fiction and nonfiction writing shenanigans at Danzilla93_GNP over at the artist formerly known as Twitter. Thanks, me. Oh, I've always wanted to do that. And also the Godzilla Novelization Project over on the Fosse Books on Facebook. And you can also, if you have longer inquiries, if you want to reach out to me and, about collaborations or to ask questions, you can reach out to me at Godzilla Novelization Project at gmail.com. And that's pretty much where you can find me.
And as for the podcasts, don't forget to rate us on iTunes. That boosts our ratings and helps us get recommended to more people just like you. If you like me and you don't have an Apple device, which I don't blame you, actually, I don't. That's all a lie. It's all a lie because I'm using a MacBook to read this exact script. But you can rate us on Spotify. To stay up to date with all things Kaiju Conversation related, head over to www.kaijuconversation.com to find all of our episodes, social media, news, and updates. Follow us on Twitter at KAIJU_CONVERS. If you don't have Twitter, you can follow us on Instagram or like us on Facebook. If you're like me before podcasting and you don't have any social media, lucky you. You can email us at kaijuconversation@gmail.com, all lowercase, all one word, you know the drill. And as always, we'll read your reviews on air for everyone to hear. We also have a Teespring store. Eventually we'll have original artwork on there, but until then you can sport our awesome logo on a t-shirt or maybe even a coffee mug. If you'd like to chat with us, check out our Discord server full of others that have similar interests to you. Most recently on the Discord server, there was a conversation about what eras of Showa-era Godzilla movies. And briefly, there was a challenge to come up with 3 eras of the Showa era and what you would label them and how you would do them. And that's the conversation. It's a great community full of great people. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you can be notified anytime we upload a video. We sometimes post exclusives to the channel, like bloopers for episodes or minisodes talking about news or other subjects. And a huge thanks to Rex for editing all of these episodes and the other content we do. All of his links can be found in the description below. Along with Rex, we'd like to give a huge thanks and shout out again to Daniel DiManna of the Godzilla Novelization Project for his amazing vocals on our theme song. You can support him by following him on Twitter at Danzilla93_GNP or visit his website, GodzillaNovelizationProject.com. And a huge thanks to Gratton Conwell from the podcast Giant Monster BS, who also composed the music for Keizo Murase, The Last Monster Maker, and did a wonderful job. You can support him by following the podcast on Twitter at Giant Monster BS or on any podcast platform under the name Giant Monster BS. And with that, we're going to wrap things up here. So thank you guys so much for listening. It's great to be back. It felt really good sitting in front of this 6-year-old microphone talking to the longest running co-host of Kaiju Conversation, the editor of Keizo Murase, The Last Monster Maker, Rex, and vocalist and most frequent guest of the show, Daniel DiManna. It has been so much fun. I have enjoyed this. I can't wait to be back in business, and it's going to be a good rest of the year. A lot of good episodes are coming up. Rex and I are really excited. And check out Keizo Murase, The Last Monster Maker, on the Brush of the God Blu-ray. Again, more distribution coming soon. Again, thank you, Danny, for joining us on this early recording. We're almost to the point where we normally start, so you're almost there. Yeah. You've almost become an official Kaiju
You've almost
converser.
Been initiated.
I aspire to be an official Kaiju converser. Thank you for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun.
It was our pleasure. We really enjoyed it. And with that, there's one thing left for everybody. As always, please remember, life's too short to not talk big. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
We are set, we are in debt. There's nothing to sweat. Life's too short now, baby. And not too big now, baby. Conversation. His name's Elijah, baby. And also Rex now, baby. We love those kaiju, baby. And you will too now.